everyone. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to this new event organized from CMS InTouch. This time, with special guests, special organizers, the members of the Turkish Academy of Management CMS division interest group. And this is the first event of a new series that we have launched during our last meeting back in January, which was the fifth birthday or anniversary of CMS in Touch. And on that day, we launched this new series, which is called CMS in Touch Global Connections. And it was an honor and a pleasure for me to start this session with this group of people, with the Turkish Academy of Management, and in particular, members of the Critical Management Studies Interest Group. It's been a real pleasure to organize this event with Ozan Aglargos from Anadolu University. And I don't want to take much of your time, so I will now stop sharing my screen in a second. Sorry, I don't know if you can see the slides and everything and the name of the attendees, and then Ozan will do a quick introduction. And let me stop. Ozan, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. So, Ozan, I don't want to take much of your time. So please feel free to introduce the session. And thank you very much again to you and all of
Thank you,
you
thank you.
for accepting our invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. It is a pleasure for us to be here first, and let's have a quick introduction of the session. And we are very happy to be the first cohort of people to be conducting the CMS in Touch Global Connections. So my name is Ozan, and we are together with Marco from the Open University. Pleased to welcome you to this online event. So the idea behind the Global Connection series with CMS in Touch is to create a space for dialogue among scholars interested in critical management studies across different contexts, traditions, and geographies. So today, event bring together a set of conversation that speak to the past, present, and possible features of CMS in Türkiye and beyond. So we are going to start with revisiting the development of critical management studies in Türkiye with Beyza Oba and Mehmet Gencer. Then Remziye Kolcu will discuss the constraints on critical scholarship in national business and management and organization field. After that, Beyza Oba and Zeynep Özsoy will shift our attention to alternative forms of organizing, showcasing their book on food politics, activism, and consumer cooperatives. And finally, Sibel Doğanay will reflect on fieldwork, crisis, and transformation of researchers positioned in the shadow of pandemic and earthquake, based on her experiences while she was conducting her PhD study. So together, these talks hopefully invite us to think about CMS not only as critique, but also as a way of understanding alternatives, fieldwork, academic constraints, and the conditions under which critical scholarship becomes possible and sometimes impossible. For the talks and the sequence and order of the talks, we will have presentations first, and then we will have a Q&A. So please feel free to write your questions in the chat during the session, and we will get back to them during the Q&A session. So now, without further ado, I think it's time for us to listen to Beyza Oba and Mehmet Gencer. Thank you very much for being with us, and good luck to CMS in Touch Global Connections.
Thank you, Ozan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting us and allowing us the chance to share our work. And I welcome all listeners here. Let me share my slides. I hope you see that fine. Yes? Okay. Well, today I'm here. I'm Mehmet Gencer. I'm here with Beyza Oba, my co-author in a piece of work that we're going to present today, which we call shortly as The Ghost. Beyza Oba is a professor of organization and management in Istanbul Bilgi University. I met her 20 years ago when I was trying to transition into social sciences, but I didn't know what to do. And I visited her to learn more about the PhD program she was running in organization studies. She told me one thing that day I still remember. She said, Mehmet, business organizations are very interesting. People spend half their lives in them, and by doing research on it, you can make a difference about their lives. And I was spellbound at that moment. And that struck with me. We did a lot of work afterwards with Beyza Hoca on open source software ecosystems, for example. I come from a software background, so I was interested in the organization of this software business. And in all of these work, it was always with us that perspective of, the interest in the human condition in business organizations. Now, looking back to it, I consider that, that's kind of the core of critical management, isn't it? But we didn't call it critical management at the time. For that, I need to fast forward 10 years, about 10 years. Um, in 2016, we have published this chapter in an edited book by Christopher Gray and others called Critical Management Studies, Global Voices, Local Accents. We wrote a chapter on critical management studies in Turkey. Um, the chapter is actually about the absence of critical management studies in Turkish management scholarship. Um, but in an interesting way, now our friends, Ozan and others, remember this piece as a proof of the presence of critical management studies. And one of the first examples, they say. I will tell a little bit about the background, how did we end up doing this work, and I will pass it on to Beza afterwards. Um, a year before the call for this book came through, and there was something happened. There was a mining accident in Turkey. A lot of people died, and we were so sad, and the whole country was talking about it for a long time. Uh, but for us, there was something off. When something big happens, experts go onto media and talk about it, right? If you find a dinosaur skeleton in Turkey, you would have all the paleontologists talking about it, lining up in the TV studios. But there was nothing from the business community and academia about what has happened. And from the news, we understood that this event was loaded with a lot of issues about privatization, neoliberal policies, and that performativist management mindset that put the profit in front of everything brutally. And there was an obvious mismanagement. But there were no management scholars talking about it. So we said, we couldn't stop talking about this with Beza for the next coming weeks and months. We were like reckoning with this, what is wrong with our community? Essentially, the community is us. So what is wrong with us, right? There should be some explanation for the silence of the academic community. It was about that time, right, Beza? The call came through, and I remember you sharing the call for the chapters with me, and we said, yeah, let's write something about this. Um, so by taking this into a little research study, we decided to take a more elaborate theoretical approach. And there were a couple of theories that we felt comfortable using and made sense in approaching this issue, this absence. One of them was guidance, it's ontological security. Business scholars are people, a community that want to keep their security. And also Bourdieu, who explained, how these cultural systems and perspectives self-reinforce themselves. So we started going around the problem with these theoretical perspectives, and something catched our attention early on. The education, the schools, the management schools had a huge role in what's happening. Essentially, the single-mindedness of how professional business communities approaching this problem, and they didn't see anything wrong with the mining accident, because they were limited mindset, and management education was the likely core of the problem that we created this perspective that formed the business elites and consequently reinforced these values and perspectives. That was shocking for us. Uh, well, in a bizarre way, it turned out that we were the criminals behind this crime, right? As the business educators. Like, uh, that was a shocking realization for me, honestly. Like, it affected all my teaching and preaching since then. And I consider this piece as a very sentimental one in that regard. But before I jump to conclusions, maybe Reza Hocam, you want to tell a bit about the theory and findings, how we conceptualized these findings in this work.
So we started to, as Mehmet said, we started to question ourselves as the members of the business schools. And in Turkey, about business schools, their origin, their history, there's a lot of studies done, especially by Behlül İstiken and his colleagues. So we use these studies as a secondary source. And we also, used our observations too. So the one part of the study was related to business schools, and very basically based on these secondary sources and our observations. We just, pointed out 3 issues about business schools, which led to this silence, let us say. One of them was the, adaptation of American education, American business school education as a universal without any neglecting, let us say, the local conditions and so forth. And the second point about the business schools, which we observed, was about all the curriculum was designed according to the needs of the business circles, let us say. So usually, courses, lectures, still it's done in that way. All these things are designed in line with the demands of, let us say, companies, business, and so forth. And finally, we have seen that in business schools, as a matter of fact, for a long time, business school is not a term we use in Turkey. It's a faculty, or it's a department within a faculty. And the faculty, as a matter of fact, is economics faculty. So very basically, economics is considered to be very scientific, where business is considered to be application, practice oriented, and so forth. And business departments never became a business school independent in terms of, recruitment, in terms of curricula, and so forth. And the second group of let us say the second group, which we identified as lacking interest or voice in such issues, was the academicians. And at that point, we just, collected the publications of the, academicians in Turkey, and again, secondary sources and so forth. So again, I mean, what we have seen, based, for example, on Üstiken and Vasti, we have seen that mainly academics in Turkey transfer American theories and practices, and mostly they are at with an informative tone rather than questioning anything. They are just taken and transposed or translated to, I mean, nearly to Turkish group, let us say, or audience. And the language used by these, I mean, publications were usually reflecting a specific mindset, a specific discourse. For example, instead of labor, they were using usually citizen or organizational member, or job termination was replaced by to leave or such. So, I mean, it was too much in line with, I would say, neoliberal policies and the labor laws drafted at that time, and still, and so. And of course, I mean, the graduates or the academicians which use this type of terminology is where they were welcomed, let us say, by the business community and by the academic community as well. So they had a more dominant position, or they were more at the center. And usually, I mean, quantitative research methods were used. One of our famous colleague, Şükrü Özen, calls this a ceremonial empiricism. I mean, just without theory or non-stop empiricism and so forth. So that was the, I mean, picture, let us say, at that time of the academic circles. And in the third part of the paper, we just checked out what's going on, what's the outcome, all these, I mean, business schools, academics, and so forth. So what we have seen is that a business reality, let us say, is constructed, where in this business reality, the only values are, I mean, rationality, productivity, performance, profits, rational managers, as I said, and so forth. And for me and for Mehmet, we still, I think, we are stuck with that. There was no room for substantive rationality. There was no room for values and so forth, which we think, I mean, a bit later, which we will claim that there should be. And there was always this, I mean, emphasis on performativity, on how productive we should be, how efficient we should be. And interesting enough about that company which run the mine, that company was given as one of the best companies in 500 Turkish company listings in terms of profitability and so forth, just a year before the accident. So that was one of the things which struck us a lot with Mehmet and so forth. So, I mean, nobody asked for what these, I mean, productivity is good for whom, efficiency is good for whom, rationality is good for who is silenced, whose voices we can hear. Nobody asked these questions as an outcome, I would say. And these were the basic points which we think were the outcomes of the business school structures and academicians' mindsets and so forth. And later, I mean, a couple of years later, we have seen that a bit of change, I would say. So, I mean, what happened was that 6 years after the accident, a court came to a conclusion that it was the mistake of the executives of the company, right? So it took 6 years for a court to make that decision. And if you check what's going on the academic circles, it's nice now we have this critical management studies interest group in Turkish Academy of Management, and this group somehow, I mean, it's because, I mean, we are all distributed to different universities and we are in different parts of Turkey and so forth. So it's nice that we can just come together around this group, at least organize some events or exchange some ideas, research interests, and so forth. And again, I mean, some younger colleagues, as far as I know, they also, I mean, started to include CMS to their courses, or they introduced courses on CMS and research methods and so forth. And if you ask personally, what we would add to this, our previous study, let us say 10 years before what we have done, Mehmet, what we have done 10 years before, we would most probably add for the academic community to be more reflexive, to be more, I mean, open to different ideas. And for being more reflexive, I would say not only in terms of what we are choosing as a research topic and so forth, but reflexive what we are doing as well. And I personally, and Mehmet as well, we never think that any academic work is value neutral. So we have to bring values back in. And because values shape what we do, how we handle that problem, and so forth. So, I mean, if we rewrite this chapter once more, we think that we will make such additions to. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Beyza Hocam and Mehmet Hocam. So, Mehmet Hocam, would you like to add something, or shall we proceed?
No, I can only underline that, values are real. They are very, very real, and
Yeah.
more real than ever in the face of crisis, I think. Thank you,
Yeah,
Beyza.
thank you. Thank you very much. And I think this first talk gave us a very valuable historical and contextual grounding for thinking about CMS in Turkey. And we now move from this broader reflection on CMS in Turkey to a more focused discussion on the constraints that shape critical scholarship in national management and organization field. With Remziye and her PhD thesis was about this specific issue. So, Remziye, welcome.
Okay. Hello. Okay. Hello. Start my presentation. I
Just
Remziye.
maybe you move to slide
Okay.
presentation mode. Yes, perfect.
Okay. Hello, I'm Remziye, and I just finished my PhD. I lecturer in the Department of Management and Organization at Istanbul Aral University. My research mainly focuses on critical management studies and national management organization field. Today, I will briefly share some findings and discussions from my doctoral research, which explores the limited visibility of critical management studies within the national management and organization fields in Turkey. So to begin with, Beyza and Mehmet Hoca, just a minute. Work was particularly important for me. Their work, I encountered a critical lens that I had rarely seen in mainstream management organization studies. They describe CMS almost like a kind of ghost within the field. So I began to ask, is this really the case? And if so, why? In this sense, this study started from a long-standing academic observation. While working in the national management and organization field, I noticed that critical management studies seem to have relatively limited visibility within the field in Turkey. And this observation gradually led me to a broader question. Does critical remain relatively constrained within the national management organization field? To explore this question, the study developed in two interconnected stages. First, a preliminary mapping process focuses on the visibility and institutional presence of CMS, and second, a qualitative inquiry aiming to understand the broader structural and academic dynamics behind this limitation. So one issue became particularly visible. Business and management and organization constitute one of the most institutionally dense academic fields in Turkey. There are many departments, many academics, many publications, and very active academic production. However, despite this density, CMS appeared to have remarkably limited visibility within the field. The preliminary mapping also suggested weak institutionalization and limited continuity of critical scholarship. And the findings were quite striking. Almost never CMS rate is extremely limited. There were no TRDs journals, no original Turkish CMS books, and similarly no dedicated CMS congresses or sustained institutional structure were observed. At this point, the issue appeared to go beyond numerical scarcity alone. The study also suggested that critical engagement with broader label environmental, organizational, and social crisis remains relatively weak within the national business and management organizational field. And this was particularly striking because Türkiye actually represents a deeply critical organizational context. Cases such as the Soma mining disaster, environmental destruction, workplace fatalities, and the Bolu Kartalkaya Hotel fire involved important questions related to corporations, organizational responsibility, labor relations, and governance. However, despite this critical context, such crises rarely became sustained objects of a critical inquiry within mainstream business and management organization field. So the problem put to concern not only the scarcity of CMS itself, but also the relatively limited institutional visibility of critics within the field more broadly. And this observation eventually led the study to investigate the underlying dynamics behind this limitation. Question, why has CMS remained so remarkably limited within the national management organization field? At this stage, the study shifted toward a qualitative inquiry. The aim was to understand the underlying dynamics behind this limitation through the experiences, perceptions, and evaluations of academics within the field itself. So rather than focusing only on numerical evidence, the study aimed to explore how critique becomes contrast through interconnected macro, meso, and micro level dynamics. At this stage, the study adopted a qualitative research design, a Brown and Clark's approach, Joya process, and 53 semi-structured interviews. At this point, I would also like to note that the dissertation identified a much broader range of themes and dynamics than what I can fully present here today. Since parts of the study are currently being prepared for publication, I will only briefly highlight some of the most visible and recurring dynamics that emerge from the findings. These examples therefore represent only a small part of a much larger and more complex analytical picture. Eight-man themes emerge from the analysis. These themes relate only to the question concerning main root causes. The first theme for the second themes, disciplinary boundaries, methodological clearness, and paradigmatic knowing, positivist dominance, and a formal and anti-reflexive academic trainer. The second theme, intellectual and theoretical deficiencies. Intellectual and theoretical deficiencies and the problem of conceptual depth and academic intent. The third theme, academic career concerns, performance and career-oriented academic pressures. The fourth theme, ideological climate, perceived risk, and self-censorship, mechanisms of perceived risk and control in academic work, and fear of exclusion, marginalization, and conformity. The fifth theme, academic culture and hierarchical structure, hierarchical academic structure and conformism. The sixth theme, disciplinary identity and practice orientation, business and management, pragmatic orientation, and disciplinary structure close to critic. The seventh theme, the influence of cultural, ideological, and societal cause, cultural and ideological barriers, and societal socialization processes and individual tendencies. The eighth theme, methodological hierarchy, prejudice against qualitative research methods, and the knowing of knowledge production. So the findings suggested that the limited visibility of CMS cannot simply be explained through individual preference alone. Rather, critique appears to become constrained through the interaction of disciplinary norms, academic career structures, political sensitivities, and broader institutional expectations. Participants frequently describe critique as academic risk, institutional fragile, and weakly legitimized within the field. In this sense, the limitation of critique appeared not as an exceptional situation, but as a relatively normalized condition within national team. At the same time, Türkiye continues to experience persistent organizational labor, environmental and social crisis. And within such a context, the need for critical perspectives within business and management organization becomes even more significant. Therefore, CMS emerges not simply as an academic alternative, but as an important intellectual space for questioning the organizational conditions shaping contemporary social realities. For me. Thank you.
Thank you, Remzi. It was great to listen to you. Great presentations, and also congratulations for surviving the PhD thesis period. For many of us, it's a big wrestle, and also working with academics, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. So congratulations first, and then thank you for the talk. And I think it's when we look at Remzi's teams and Mehmet and Beyza Hoca's where we left, it matches very well. So it was a good transition. So your talk helped us to think about the conditions, limits, and negotiations involved in doing critical scholarship. Now we turn to another important dimension. We are going to talk about a showcase of a research which was done by Beyza and Zeynep Hoca. So they are going to focus on talk about alternatives. So what kind of organizations, practices, and collective arrangements allow us to imagine different ways of organizing. And I think this will be a good way to see CMS in action. Zeynep and Beyza hocamız, floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you very much for sharing the slides. Actually, I will start to this presentation, and I will leave the floor to Beyza Oba. Let me introduce myself. I am an organizational studies scholar currently working at Altınbaş University Business School. But before I started working at Altınbaş 5 years ago, I was working at Istanbul Bilgi University with Beyza Oba. So we met actually 28 years ago, and I worked with her for more than 20 years, let's say. We have some studies together, and now we will share our book on food politics, activism, and alternative consumer cooperatives. So please, next slide. We first encounter the cooperatives under study as consumers. We both live in districts. The other slide, please, Beyza Hocam. Okay. No.
Okay.
Thank you very much. With the beginnings, yes. We both live in the districts where some of these cooperatives were founded and carried their operations. As residents of the districts and citizens concerned with the economic and political conditions, we were interested in ideas, values, and practices that shaped these cooperatives. Initially, we were influenced by the new food provisioning model experimented and their governance. However, it took us some time to develop a framework studying such initiatives. Later, based on data collected, we positioned these consumer cooperatives as a form of organizing shaped by a non-market logic, operating with non-market form of work, shaped by values of solidarity, responsibility, i.e. alternative consumer cooperatives, ACCs. So ACCs we studied are shaped and driven by middle-class urban consumers who problematize the neoliberal policies and hegemonic market logic, commodification of labor, food, and rural petty commodity producers who are marginalized by industrialized food provisioning system. So we can change the slide, please. Okay, we think that alternative consumer cooperatives provide a valuable example of alternative organization. They differ from other similar cooperatives in other geographies, and with the local ones with their oppositional position taking, not only to neoliberal policies, but the way they are implemented. As we proceed with data collection process, which is comprised in in-depth interviews, participant observations, social media accounts, and secondary sources, core concepts of the study, and thus the book started to emerge. Actually, we interviewed more than 50 people, including founders, volunteers, other constituencies involved, such as Farmers Union, and we attended their meetings, festivals in order to collect data. We visit their shops, and we attended some of the festivals, and we also use social media accounts as a source for our study. So our study is built around three main concepts: prefiguration, food sovereignty movement, and diverse economies. So in Turkey, the ACCs are different to conventional consumer cooperatives, which have been instrumentalized either by the state or companies To explain this difference, we devoted a chapter to the political economy of consumer cooperatives in Turkey in different periods. In so doing, we aim to juxtapose ACCs to the conventional consumer cooperatives in Turkey that are incited by the state, managed in top-down manner, serve only by their members, and function as distribution centers for overcoming supply shortages and price hikes. ACCs, in contrast to these conventional cooperatives, are founded by rural petty commodity producers and urban middle-class professionals who oppose the prevailing food provisioning system, committed to the food sovereignty movement, and opt for a just and clean food provisioning system. Those involved in ACCs try to reshuffle the food production and consumption nexus, preserve agricultural land from urbanization, and regain their lost position in the economic and political realm. So, what are the differences? I will start to discuss differences of ACCs from the other consumer cooperatives. And then I will leave the place to Beyza Oba. Let's start with the governance model. We identify some of the differences of ACCs. First of all, they have a unique governance model, which is characterized by no hierarchy, consensus-based decision-making, and this is shaped by ideals of direct democracy. We have a chapter on the unique governance model experimented by these ACCs, and this chapter is composed of 3 parts: performance measures, organization, form and practices, and volunteer work. So, in terms of performance measures, the goal of ACCs is not profit, but solidarity. So they do not aim to scale up. They do not accept any kind of competition among ACCs, so they can provide know-how support to those who aim to set up an alternative cooperative. In terms of organizational form and practices, horizontalidad may be the best concept to understand their organizational form and practices. So there is a full consensus decision-making process in these cooperatives, and that is based on the right to speak and obligation to listen without judgment. There is no specialization among the members or the volunteers, and the organizational form structured and shaped by the values of equal work, equal voice principle, and of course, solidarity and inclusion is the main values of these cooperatives. In terms of volunteer work, they have also a unique system in terms of member recruitment, in terms of training to the members, and placement and job rotation. So in the chapter, we also question and discuss whether these practices will lessen the problems encountered or lead to different problems, such as informal inequalities. So now I hand over to Beyza Oba to my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Zeynep. So the second difference which we observed in alternative consumer cooperatives was that they were experimenting with the alternative food provisioning model. This food provisioning model was alternative to the, industrial, agricultural production, and so forth. So in that, we started the chapter with the explaining the prevalent food provisioning model, which is, shaped by direct income supports, contract farming, privatization of state-owned cooperatives, and so forth. And then in the second part of the chapter, we explained what this alternative consumer cooperatives are experimenting and so forth. So three things about this alternative food provisioning. The first thing is that there was an unmediated relationship between producers and consumers. So it was direct contact with the small producers, rural small producers, and urban consumers. And alternative surplus generation, which was based on the no profits, minimum costs, because all work was done by volunteers. Only they have one paid accountant, and they were paying for the rents of the shops, which became problem later. And in the third part, the third difference was defetishization of the food stuff, because they were providing full information about the producer, the working conditions, the labor behind that food stuff appeared on the shelves of the shop, and so forth. We also, in this line, we also discussed the scaling up problem, which later became a problem for them for their sustainability, let us say. And instead of, scaling up, they were trying to develop horizontal and scaling up, and so forth. And in the third part, we had a third chapter about the difference of alternative consumer cooperatives than the existing ones. And it was the public sphere they were developing. And while we were debating this chapter and writing this chapter, we positioned it on the public sphere concept by Habermas. And so here we were trying to explain how this alternative public sphere and food provisioning, let us say, is shaped by different set of practices. For example, how shop was used, how social media was used. Even they had an alternative football league with totally different rules and so forth, where both men and women, no gender difference in the teams and so forth. Then we discussed again, in line with this public sphere, the activities like workshop, talks, film screening, celebrations, site visits to the production sites, and so forth. And finally, there was this room for critical discourse they developed for raising awareness about the problems of industrial agriculture, let us say, and based on market logic and so forth, and about the alternatives. And as a matter of fact, I will say a bit later, this public sphere has been extremely influential, and it still goes on. Some other things maybe changed a bit, but this public sphere goes on in a different form with a different scale, but still, is a venue where people devoted alternative food networks for clean and just food provisioning. They are sharing their ideas and so forth. So that was the book, and we still follow what's going on. And where we are, when we started the study in 2018, there were only two alternative consumer cooperatives. BÜKOP, the Boğaziçi University Cooperative, that was the first one. And the second one was Kadıköy, and there were street coop initiatives, three of them. But when we worked on the book, towards the end of the book, when we nearly completed everything, their numbers increased. So there were 15, as much as we can gather information. There were 15 of them in different parts of Istanbul and in other cities and so forth. And there were, publications, there were, books. The founders of these cooperatives, they share their experiences in nice, documents and so forth. And there were, thesis, PhD thesis or MA thesis and so forth. and such. So this is the nice side, but I will come to this later. But in the last few years, I mean, last 2 years especially, several of these cooperatives are forced to close down their shops because of high rents or because of some conflicts of interest with the hosting organizations and so forth. So they close their shops, but some of them still continue in box schemes and so forth. But that's one of the things which we don't feel very happy with. And some of them temporarily started to suspend their operations because they cannot cope with this, I mean, market logic and economic system, especially these rising rents and so forth. So we are trying to understand. We still follow. We just, I mean, keep the trajectory, and we still try work on this topic and try to understand. So was it a complete withdrawal? I mean, or I mean, they deliberately refuse to accept emission drift or compromise or co-optation and so forth. So this, I mean, we didn't give up studying these alternative organizations and alternative consumer cooperatives because they had a transformative effect. No matter, I mean, what happens with their shops or volunteers and so forth. So, I mean, for example, after this, let us say, movement, after these cooperatives and so forth, we have seen lots of, I mean, things changing from the consumer and the producer side. For example, with the support of the municipalities in some cities, we started to find farmers markets organized by municipalities, which provide a direct contact between the producers and consumers. And there is an increase in the number of digital platforms or WhatsApp groups and so forth, which connects different producers from different parts of Turkey and such. A number of small petty commodity producers engaged in clean, I mean, foodstuff production. It's increasing as far as we can follow. And there is a rising interest in urban farms, urban gardening in bostans, which we call urban gardens in Turkish. We call them bostans, or rooftop farming in big cities and so forth. So after all, I mean, things are changing in terms of alternative food networks, but although it's very nascent, it's very slow and gradual. So this is all I would like to share about alternative consumer cooperatives.
Thank you, Zeynep and Beyza hocamız. It was great to listen to alternatives from you as well, and also to see the work that you have done appeared and published as a book. So it shows us that it's doable with the Turkish context, Turkish data, Turkish empirical material. We can contribute to the CMS in general in worldwide. So thank you very much for all the effort and everything that you put in this work. So from your work to Sibel's work, we are moving on to, so we talk about like CMS, and we generally like talk about like ideas, like there's now with your work we see it's concrete, situated, politically charged forms of organizing, and you have seen it beautifully in your book. And Sibel will also show us that, like the field work. I mean, you conducted the field work, and Sibel also conducted the field work. But the field work can sometimes has to happen in a ways that is unthinkable, maybe a pandemic or earthquake, or both in Sibel's case. So Sibel will tell us about her endeavors trying to overcome these situations as a CMS scholar, which is who is maybe, shall I say, naively, but a little bit, I mean, still new, your PhD, right?
Yes.
Yes,
In
good. So
September, I defended my PhD.
September. So congratulations, and
Thank you.
looking forward to listen to you. Over to you, Sibel.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Hi. Sorry. Yes. And
Sibel, maybe we change to slide mode.
okay.
Now we see the whole screen. Yeah, that one is better.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, good.
My work subject entering the field in the shadow of pandemic and earthquake, the transformation of the researcher positionality. It's about this research, our PhD thesis about the why cooperatives emerge in Turkey. And in our PhD thesis, I'm qualitative research, in-depth interviews from 19 participants from the 8 grassroots cooperatives like theater cooperatives, food consumer cooperative, education, energy cooperatives, publishing cooperatives. And actually, I want to start that actually for a researcher and knowledge production, I think cannot be independent of the researcher's ideologic positions. And when I started to my field research, there is some problems, answer problems. Firstly, actually, before the pandemic, I first contact with cooperatives, everything was okay, but then it's COVID-19 pandemic and the field work it's closed. And then what can I do? That's it's actually. Yeah. My first threshold is the pandemic. But this pandemic lockdown postponed my planned field work, but the direct access to cooperative become impossible. But lockdown is okay, but the online webinars and some online social media sharings for cooperatives, unexpected door opens. Previously invisible structures become visible, and this distance and the lockdowns actually creates a paradoxical proximity. And actually, when I watching the, for example, theater cooperatives sharings and also other cooperatives sharings, and also I watched some webinars. My research direction shifts. Also, my research question is shifted, because actually in the first I want to study about how cooperatives working, what's their principles, but when I watch cooperatives, the why in the Turkey cooperatives establish so quickly. And then pandemic is over, and then again I want to go to field, but to this time for the second threshold, the 2022, the earthquake, it's in everything again it's stopped. It's in the vacuum of the state coordination. In this earthquake, collective solidarity became the necessity of the survival, and also, but this didn't stop at the field's boundary, and in everyone, every people, I saw that trying to survive, transform in the middle of everything, and in the earthquake, one participant shared their emotions like that. I realized that if a building collapsed on me, there was no possibility of state taking care of me. So many lives were lost. Even a situation this horrific, the state is not part of our lives. So what are we going to do? We will hold on to each other. And then the earthquake, it's over. And then again, I try to go to field. And this time it's a field access. It's a problem because when I go to field, actually field asks the researchers, who is this researcher and how will she represent us? And actually, field access for me, it's not a simple methodological step or a matter of scheduling interviews. Actually, field also evaluated the researcher. And actually, for the field, it's an ethical and political negotiation for a researcher and the research. And this time, I think that they evaluated me, and I think that actually it's the field is not a display of the experiences from which the researcher selects useful data and walks away. Actually, our participants, and we shouldn't be. They are not a shop of window of experience. We shouldn't be against the extractive research because the research responsibility cannot end with the constant forms and analysis. And actually, in the field, we are moving beyond the transaction. Because it's keeping the relation alive using research and accompanying communities instead of observing from afar. And actually, our participants in our research are lived experiences, and their experiences are active strategies, not static objects of academic analysis. And this one, I think that how can I remain accountable to the people whose experiences make this knowledge possible? Maybe for a surgeon, for me, my contribution, what can be, even if it's small. And actually, we, as a researcher, we can become a small mediator for making strategies visible. And then actually the third one is actually when I enter the field, and the field also receives to me, because from interview live space, and this please don't leave us that my participants says that, because it's a participant from cooperative made that actually for these words it's a relation, it's actually share ethical, emotional, and what's ongoing. Also, cooperative spaces when I enter the fields, opening and the closing space. Also, for example, when I enter the fields and interview cooperative members, also I going to with her market, and I daily routines. I was in the daily routines, and the field actually received and included me. And in the field, actually, not something I observed. It was something that affected me. and temporarily included me its everyday life. And for this reason, for our participants, for our researchers, making voices heard, remaining accountable, and when we enter the field, actually, it's not simply taking stories and leaving. You should contribute. And maybe conclusion that the in crisis for pandemic and then the earthquakes is the moment that makes researcher positionality visible. And the pandemic, as I said, that redirected my research. In the first, my actually research question is change. Also, the earthquake transformed my relationship to field, because when I entered the field after the earthquake, actually I was also in anger about in the society when I lived in here. And the positionality is not only what you bring to field, it's built in a relation and in the fields with the field. Oh, I don't know what I say. And actually, we are researchers. Actually, we are not entering the field, it's ready, but actually, the field is letting transform you. Thank you. It's so.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Sibel. It was very well planned and informative, experience-based presentation, which is based on your PhD and also your PhD supervisor here. So I would like to also thank Janset to support young PhD scholars like you for conducting PhD, CMS-based PhDs. So thank you, Janset, as well, for supporting CMS and Sibel. And yeah, we are done with the presentations. I think we should open the virtual floor for discussion and then more questions. So we have a couple of.
Yes, we have a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
And I would like to give them the precedence. And there is one question from Ella Unler. Hopefully I pronounced the name correctly. And Ella, do you want to ask the question to the panel? So if you want to also develop a bit more your question, would you be happy to do that? Or I can just read your question? Yes. Can you?
You'll have to allow them.
Okay. I couldn't see it. Give me a second. I will find you.
I think now they
Okay.
can.
Yes. Ella, feel free to
Yeah.
ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
And I'm not sure if my video is on or not because I'm not able to see myself. Okay, it's not a problem if you can hear me. No problem. Okay, I'm. This is Ela Ünler, and I'm Turkish as well. And I have been working at University of Hertfordshire for about 3 years and 4 months, almost 3.5 years. And I moved from Turkey to here to the UK 3 years ago. And I'm very happy to be here in this meeting. But also, I need some implications from that meeting. What can we do together as a research, and also referring to the things Beyza Hoca has mentioned previously. Maybe we can apply a funding or other things together. We can collaborate with the people who are happy to work with. I don't know. That's why I want to ask if it is possible, because this is my first time attending such a meeting, and I'm very happy to come together with my Turkish colleagues as well. And maybe we can do better and contribute to the literature in a better and different ways. This is just an idea. I don't know how does it sound, but yeah. This is it. I hope it makes sense.
It is, yes. Thank you, thank you. I mean, there are many ways to collaborate, but anyone would like to answer or comment on Ela's comment?
Getting in touch was the key idea in these meetings, and so it's good to hear your intent for collaboration. Yeah, well, Ozan is kind of the key person here. He's organizing the events in Turkey, at least for this group. So let's get in touch and stay in touch.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, where are you, Mehmet Hocam?
I'm in İzmir Economics University.
Okay. Great to meet you. Thank you.
So you are more than welcome to be in touch with CMS interest group with the Turkish Academy of Management. So this may be a one starting point. But Beyza Hocam, would you like to add something?
I will just, go on with what Mehmet said. It's very nice, to hear and collaborate, because this is what we are after, isn't it? Just to be a community and do some things together. And that will be very nice, Ella. So, you know all of us now, so we can get in touch, do joint work. But Ozan, you are the Ozan Alagöz. He's the, what's the point? Then
he is the contact person.
He's a contact, right? But
Okay.
you all know our places as well, our universities.
Yeah,
so there's
sure,
no problem
sure.
with that.
Yeah.
And it will be very good for all of us to. This is, anyhow, this is what we are after, isn't it? To build a community in Turkey for CMS. So, more than welcome.
Okay, thank you so much.
There is another question in the chat from Emir Azaran. I don't know, Emir, if you want to ask the question live, or if you want me to read. If you want to develop, okay. You should be able to speak. Let me double check. Oh. Emir, feel free to.
No, thank you very much.
Question.
I think you can hear me now.
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you very much. First of all, I really want to thank you for Ozan and for all the speakers, and particularly Ozan, for bringing together such engaged scholars together in the same panel. That's fascinating. And maybe in continuation to Ella, I am currently in the UK as well. I am actually doing my academic research for a quite number for this is my second year, actually, at the end of second year in Oxford Brookes Business School. So and I also linked to and affiliated with Dokuzel University Izmir, the same city with Mehmet Gencer Hocam. So I think since we are at least kind of the marginalized community in the mainstream business school, the idea of coming together, as Ela Ünler said, is particularly important to make our voices heard. And this is particularly relevant not only in Turkey, but also in the UK, because there are certain particular financial turbulence and the cuts, especially the critical management business scholars' voices and also their budgets. So generating impact through this collaboration is critical, but how we can do it is also as maybe a part of another discussion, but we should definitely do that. Otherwise, we really focus on in our own small hubs. So my question is maybe for the future. So my question is just a broad idea. What are the feature problematic areas for the CMS scholarships do you think are critical to be worth exploring in the current and in the future rounds, such as or climate change or climate emergency or any other issues you think are particularly relevant, we should be particularly focused on as a group or as an individual. And we discussed also, kind of, we know that, and we are all aware of the institutional pressures and constraints. How are we as CMS scholars trying to cope with these dynamics, and what are particular tactics and strategies we can adopt to overcome? Any useful insights or reflections? Some praxis, actually, and some future directions. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't keep it so long.
In your average, it's okay, Emir. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ozan. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mehmet hocamız, buyurun.
I could say one thing about dealing with these struggles existing as a critical scholar. I find Emir, the crises and struggles very valuable. They're great. They open up space for you to head on to mainstream ideas. In normal times, when you attack mainstream ideas, you're basically banging yourself against the wall and marginalizing yourself with not much result. But in times of crisis, uh, there is an opening for alternatives. I personally find it recently, I personally find my space in digital transformation. In the past, we have find it in open source software with Beyza Hocam. At the time, software industry was going through multiple crises, and open source seemed like a great alternative. When you develop these critical alternatives in those times, you have more chance of being heard and actually creating the alternative by even talking about it. More recently, I work in digital transformation, which is a big struggle for companies. So the normal things aren't working for them. Then you can talk about alternatives. They listen. But for teaching, I don't know. I mean, teaching is the harder part, I think.
Anyone else would like to talk about? I mean, yeah, we are in a very fertile context, I think, for CMS in many ways. So the thing is that making national CMS relevant for global CMS. So I think we should work on that, because I mean the struggles that we are having are not particular to Türkiye, they are everywhere. So I think we should create that connection. So yeah, my take on that issue. Anyone else would like to add any other question, comment? Yes.
There is a question from Daniel. Daniel, sorry. Daniel, please feel free to ask your question.
Hello to my Turkish friends. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Hello.
Okay, so this is Daniel from Pakistan, and I congratulate you on this initiative. I have two questions, and I was really looking forward to, those aspects. You see, and I'll give you a bit of background as well. You see, when we talk about theory, whether it's conventional management theory or it's critical theory, or critical understanding. Every theory presumes, whether it's acknowledged or not acknowledged, some epistemic basis. So I would like to ask that, when you are taking this initiative in Turkey, so do you have any Turkish epistemic basis through which, you can critically evaluate the mainstream management and the business world? Because we agree or not agree, CMS has a very heavy European flavor. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but it definitely has a very European identity. So if you are taking this initiative within Turkey, so do you have any Turkish epistemic basis with which you would associate? First. Second, which I really want to understand is that when you're taking this initiative, how would you make sure that this initiative does not adopt an identity of a regulator? It remains a space where people come together, share ideas. Well, that's very good. But increasingly, it has been observed that these kind of spaces, what they become is they become regulators. I mean, you will not profess it that it's a regulator, but the way it functions, it becomes a hierarchy, and there are certain people who become more powerful and they start imposing their ideas. So, I mean, what practical steps you would take to make sure that it does not become a regulator? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
Anyone would like to answer or comment on Daniel's questions? The first one was about local epistemics, like how can we use Turkish epistemic understanding to understand mainstream, and the other one is about the identity of a regulator. So my comment would be like, yes, there are, of course, we can use local epistemic understandings to criticize mainstream, but then we have the reviewer two problem. They say that this is too local. This is not what we are looking for. You are not in conversation with the global the theories. So, but I think it's doable, and I think we should find a way that we should use local knowledge to enhance global knowledge, but we have to overcome that reviewer two kind of understanding. This is my first answer to your first question. And the other one is identity of a regulator. It's about power. I mean, power is sticky. So whenever someone become powerful, then they want to regulate as the way they can. But it's a change is good. So we should acknowledge change, and then we should also acknowledge the change of an identity of the change will also transform the identity of the regulator. So these are my answers to your questions, but these are very broad questions. So maybe another webinars should be conducted on that. But thank you very much. Would you like to add anything to Daniel's questions?
Maybe I will say
Yes, please.
one or two things. With this epistemic side, that's nice, true enough. I mean, do we have we have local problems maybe, and how we approach those problems. But if you, I mean, as a researcher, maybe if we consider how we look at these problems, how we are reflexive and so forth, that can be a local answer, in my opinion, and a local approach and so forth. So I would just apply that, how we problematize and how we be reflexive and so forth. I will just go. Regulator is, I mean, true enough, it's just power and such. At the moment, I don't know. We don't have any measures. It's an open platform at the moment. And but of course, we have to consider that. I mean, it's open, how open it's going to be, how participation or such. Maybe we can just, I mean, learn some things from these cooperatives or such, I don't know. But that's a nice point to remember. Keep in mind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone, any question on the chat, either on the chat or would you like to add anything? We are coming to the end of the session, I think, and Surprisingly, we are on time.
Well, we're still on time to go overtime if you want.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always, yeah.
If you want, I have a very small question which is connected to the previous question from Emir, and the fact that I am also based in the UK, and I share the concerns and the perspective of Emir about the deliberate or less deliberate but still targeted attacks to CMS scholars in many universities from a lot of different reasons. It ends up those who start paying for the first, the price of these moments of crisis inside academia sometimes are CMS scholars. And this is more of a question from your perspective. Did you experience or have you experienced in the past similar a pressure or the feeling of being under attack? And if yes, hopefully is a not from you, which means that it looks like an healthy environment. But if yes, how have you experienced this, and how have you resisted to these forms of pressure from your institution? Because maybe it's just you have very supportive institutions, and that would be something that we might probably learn from you.
Yeah, anyone would like to add, comment? Yes, I see Zeynep Hoca's mic is on, so.
Okay, maybe I can say that they do not interested in too much what we are doing. Unfortunately, it's maybe an unfortunate thing, but maybe it is, in a sense, something which helps us to do further research, because they are really unaware what we are doing, actually.
Yeah. It's being the ghost sometimes has
Yes,
advantages. Maybe at the beginning, I don't know. This is what I was thinking while you I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, I can add to Zeynep as well. As a matter of fact, that's, exactly what it is. There's no pressure because nobody is interested in these topics, right? So why you are in business school interested with such things or whatsoever. So it's just, not valuable contribution, quote unquote.
It's something which is very marginal, they think, and they do not care what we are doing most of the time.
Yes, Sibel.
But you talk about the pressure. When I present my PhD thesis to our department, it's a seminar. My head of department says that science should be done for science. I think she think that I don't. My thesis is not the scientific research, but now I still I keep doing what I do, skipping. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and actually share
I
the
still do
feeling.
that what I want to do.
Yes.
Whatever she says that.
Yeah, this is one of the problems sometimes in doing critical research, which can be either considered not enough or sometimes too much when it becomes too problematic, quote unquote. Thank you very much for your answer. Thank you very much for your explanations. And if we don't have any other questions, I have just two slides from the CMS InTouch perspective about two main events. Let me share the screen for a second. Where are the slides? I can see them. Share the screen. Let's try like this. Can you see the slides?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
in slide
Yes.
mode. Yes.
Okay, so this is just, I should have shared in a different way. Anyway, this is just to remind that there are 2 forthcoming events with the CMS InTouch, which 2 events on the InTouch Writing Series, one Tuesday 23 of June and one on Friday 17 of July. If you are interested in participating to these writing groups, feel free to scan the QR code. They are sessions hosted by Vic Pagan, which is a member of our team. Thank you very much, Vic, for organizing these sessions. They are very supportive sessions and can be used to work in group with other people and to share your writing and have someone to work with in a very supportive environment. So feel free for everyone to join these sessions. And then the next point, if my computer moves, this is just a reminder of the various types of session that we support with CMS InTouch. And if any of you online who are now with us, or if you are seeing this recording later on, if you are interested in organizing an event with us, get in touch with us. You can find us by writing on Gmail to cmswebinar@gmail.com. Get in touch and we will help you organize the events. The last point that I want to raise is that CMS InTouch is trying to expand their team. We are a very small team at the moment. We would like to have a bigger team to organize events. So there is still time until the 11th of June to complete the Google form with expression of interest. Again, feel free either to get in touch with us if you want to have more information about this, or scan the code and complete the form. And that's all from me. Let me stop sharing. Why I can't stop?
Yes, and before we close, maybe I would like to thank to our participants and also the panelists today, Beyza, Mehmet, Remziye, Zeynep, and Sibel, for being with us, and also for Marco and Munip for hosting us, Turkish Academy of Management CMS Interest Group. And we hope that CMS InTouch Global Connections will continue to create a conversation across contexts, and today's event will lead to further dialogue and collaboration. Thank you for all being with us, and hope to meet you again somewhere soon.
Thank you very much. I also share the same gratefulness for you, Ozan, organizing the event with me, to all the panelists for their interesting talks and for sharing their experiences. Thank you very much. And yes, if anyone who is here with us or is listening to this recording who wants to organize an event with us, especially when we speak about the CMS InTouch Global Connections, if you are a member of a CMS Global community who wants to showcase the work, to speak with us and to the wider community about their experiences and perspective and local views, please get in touch with us. It would be amazing for us to organize these sessions with you. And again, thank you very much. Hope you have a nice weekend or rest of the day or night, wherever you are located. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank
Marco.
you, everyone. Hope